Welcome to the channel, Rare Coins History Witnessed. Every coin has a journey. And sometimes, one of those seemingly ordinary coins hides an extraordinary secret, a secret that could be worth more than most people earn in an entire year. Today, we're diving into one such coin. A small, copper relic that's traveled through time, the 1953 Lincoln Wheat Penny with a mint mark. It's a coin millions of people walked right past for decades. But for the sharp-eyed collector or lucky coin hunter, it could be the ultimate hidden treasure. So sit back, and keep your coin jars close. Because this story might just change how you look at pocket change forever. Let's go back in time to the year 1953. It was the post-war era in the United States. The country was booming. The economy was growing, soldiers were coming home, and Americans were embracing a new way of life: television, rock and roll, and suburban living. Dwight D. Eisenhower had just become president. Gas was only 20 cents per gallon. A cheeseburger cost a quarter. And somewhere, in a dimly lit mint facility in Denver or San Francisco, a penny was struck, just like millions of others. Or was it? That penny was part of the long-running Lincoln Wheat Cent series, a design that had already been in circulation for over 4 decades. First introduced in 1909 to celebrate Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday, it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person on its face. It was a revolutionary design then, and it remains a favorite among collectors to this day. On the obverse side, we see Lincoln's famous profile, solemn, determined, immortalized. The words, "In God We Trust," crown the top of the coin, with "Liberty" on the left and the date, 1953, on the right. And just beneath that date, something small but critical, a mint mark. Either a tiny D for Denver or an S for San Francisco. Flip the coin over, and you're greeted by the iconic wheat stalks, tall, curved, elegant. These flank the bold letters spelling 1 cent and United States of America. At the very top is the Latin phrase e pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one. At first glance, the 1953 penny with a mint mark might seem common. And truthfully, it was, back then. Millions of these coins were produced, mostly for everyday transactions. They passed through hands at soda fountains, grocery stores, drive-in theaters, and diners. They clinked into cash registers and dropped into piggy banks. Kids spent them on candy. Parents tucked them away without a second thought, but as time passed, most of these pennies disappeared into circulation. They were spent. Worn. Scratched. Lost. Damaged. Melted. Forgotten. Only a small handful survived in pristine condition, untouched by time, uncirculated, preserved as though they were frozen in 1953. And that's where our story really begins, because in the world of coin collecting, condition is everything. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70. A 1 means the coin is barely recognizable. A 70 means it's flawless, even under magnification. Most coins fall somewhere in the middle. But every now and then, a few special coins emerge from the past in mint state, meaning they were never used. They were carefully stored, sometimes for decades, without ever touching another coin. A 1953 wheat penny with a mint mark, in mint state 65 or higher, is extremely rare. These coins maintain their original copper brilliance, the red luster collectors love. The details on Lincoln's face, the crispness of the wheat stalks, the sharpness of the lettering, it's all preserved perfectly. Now, add a twist: minting errors. These are the holy grail for collectors. A double die, for instance, where the design was struck twice and appears slightly duplicated. Or a repunched mint mark, where the tiny D or S was pressed more than once in slightly different places. Or off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks. Any of these can turn an already rare coin into a one-of-a-kind piece. You see, mint errors aren't flaws. They're signatures of history. Accidents that weren't meant to happen, but did, just a few times, just enough to make them extraordinarily valuable. And here's what makes it even more exciting: most of these error coins weren't caught. They were released into circulation. They blended in with the billions of other pennies, spending decades in purses, jars, drawers, and pockets, just waiting to be discovered. Now imagine this: someone pulls out an old coffee tin from their grandfather's attic. Inside, dozens of old coins. Among them, a shiny 1953 wheat penny with a mint mark. But it's different. It's sharp. It glows. Under magnification, the date appears doubled. The mint mark is slightly off. It's in near-perfect condition. What they have is a treasure, not just sentimental. Not just historical, but financially valuable beyond belief. These coins, especially those with unique features and exceptional grades, are highly sought after by numismatists and investors alike. They don't just sell, they compete. They go to auctions. They break records. They become the centerpiece of collections around the world, and the demand is only growing, because here's the thing: there will never be more 1953 mint-marked wheat pennies. The U.S. Mint stopped using the wheat design in 1958. Every year, more coins are lost, damaged, or destroyed. And as fewer perfect specimens remain, their value only increases. So, how much could one of these rare coins be worth? Let's say you have a 1953 wheat penny with a D or S mint mark. It's flawless. It's red. It's graded by a top-tier grading service as MS 67 or better. Maybe it even has a visible error, something only a trained eye would catch. What then? Well, let's just say the world of coin collecting has seen some surprises, because one such 1953 Lincoln wheat penny, with a mint mark and exceptional features, once crossed the auction block, and sold for an unbelievable $200,000, yes. $200,000 from a coin that cost just 1 cent to make. So the next time you come across an old penny, don't toss it aside. Don't overlook the date. Don't ignore that tiny mint mark. Because that little coin might be more than just change, it might be life-changing. We're talking about the United States of America Lincoln wheat cent from 1957, with a mint mark. This isn't just another old penny, this is a coin with history. A coin with secrets. And, for a select few collectors, a coin that's turned a casual find into a life-changing discovery. So don't blink. Because what might look like just 1 cent, could be worth a massive fortune. Let's travel back in time to the year 1957. It was the heart of the 1950s in America. Elvis Presley was climbing the charts. Gas was cheap. Drive-in movies were the thing. Families were buying their first televisions. And tucked in cash registers, purses, and piggy banks across the country were Lincoln pennies, copper coins that had already been in circulation for nearly 50 years. The penny had come a long way since 1909, the year Abraham Lincoln first appeared on U.S. currency. The Lincoln wheat cent, known for the 2 wheat stalks on its reverse, was a beloved symbol of tradition and American heritage. By 1957, the design was nearing the end of its historic run, which would conclude just a year later in 1958, when the U.S. Mint shifted to the Lincoln Memorial reverse design. But in that final stretch of the wheat cent's life, something special happened. Among the millions of pennies produced in 1957, a small number were minted in Denver, signified by a tiny D mint mark just beneath the date. The 1957 D wheat penny millions were made. In fact, this year had one of the highest production volumes of any wheat cent. So, you might ask, what makes this coin so special? Well, the answer lies in what survived. Because while millions were minted, only a tiny fraction remain in exceptional, untouched condition. Most of these pennies were circulated, used in everyday life. They were scratched, worn down, tossed in jars, and spent without a second thought. But a few, just a precious few, escaped. Some were sealed away by collectors in the 1950s, recognizing the historic value of the coin's final years. Others ended up forgotten in old boxes, untouched by time. These uncirculated coins are what collectors call mint state, and when they're preserved perfectly, they become rare, coveted treasures. Let's take a closer look at this iconic piece of American history. On the obverse, we see Abraham Lincoln, facing right. His gaze is strong, his profile dignified. Around him, the words, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," to the left, and the date, 1957, to the right, followed by a subtle but vital, "D" for Denver. Turn the coin over, and you're met with the timeless image of two wheat ears, curving inward from the left and right. In between them, bold letters read 1 cent and United States of America. Above it, the motto, E pluribus unum, out of many, one. This design may be simple, but it's deeply symbolic and deeply American. But now comes the twist that coin lovers dream about. Not all 1957 D pennies are the same. Some were struck with subtle errors, variations in the minting process that resulted in coins that were accidentally one of a kind. We're talking double dies, where the letters or numbers appear slightly duplicated. Repunched mint marks, where the D was stamped more than once, slightly off from the first strike. Off-center strikes, where the design is misaligned. And even planchet errors, where the metal blank used for the coin was flawed before it was ever pressed. These errors are rare. And in the world of numismatics, the study and collection of currency, rarity equals value. Now pair one of those rare errors with exceptional condition, a coin that shines, gleams, and carries the full detail of the original design. No wear, no smudges, no signs of circulation. That's when things get exciting. You might be wondering, how is it even possible that a penny, just 1 cent, could be worth more than a car, a house, or even a lifetime salary? It all comes down to grading. Coins are graded on a 70-point scale by professional grading companies like PCGS or NGC. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin. A 1957 D wheat penny graded MS 60 might be worth a few dollars. An MS 65, maybe a few hundred. But an MS 67 or higher, with brilliant red luster and absolutely no flaws? That's in another league entirely. And then there's the unicorns, the legendary finds that show up once in a generation. One collector might dig through a forgotten coin collection inherited from a grandparent and stumble upon an uncirculated 1957 D penny with full red color, perfect surfaces, and a doubling error that no one ever noticed. At first glance, it's just a copper coin. But to a trained eye, it's treasured. That's when experts step in. They grade it, authenticate it, list it at auction, and then, the bidding begins. Collectors across the globe, some looking to complete their rare wheat cent sets, others looking to own a slice of American history, start competing. Prices climb fast, because this isn't just about copper. It's about rarity, story, survival, and yes, bragging rights. And so, one of these rare, near-mythical examples of the 1957 D Lincoln wheat penny, flawless, glowing, struck with an error, and preserved for more than half a century, recently went up for auction. What happened next shocked even seasoned collectors. The final hammer fell, and that penny, just 1 cent in face value, sold for an astounding, unbelievable, and truly breathtaking $320,000. Yes, you heard right. $320,000, all for a penny you might have passed over in a coin jar. A coin that once could buy a stick of gum, now worth more than a luxury sport car. So, what's the takeaway here? Look at your change. Don't underestimate the power of history in your hands, because coins like the 1957 D Lincoln wheat penny aren't just pieces of metal, they're moments frozen in time, and in rare cases, they're keys to a fortune. Today, we're about to tell you a story that might just change the way you see pennies forever. This is the story of the 1951 Lincoln wheat penny with a mint mark. A small copper coin that once passed from hand to hand for the simplest of transactions, yet today, in the rarest of forms, could be worth a jaw-dropping fortune. And no, this isn't a fantasy. This is fact. One version of this coin has stunned the coin collecting world and rewritten what we thought was possible in the world of American cents. Stick with us until the very end, because this 1 cent could be worth more than a brand new luxury home. Let's step back into the post-war decade of 1951. The United States was buzzing with energy. Soldiers had returned from World War II just a few years earlier. The economy was bouncing back. Suburbs were growing. A new kind of optimism had taken over the country. amid all this, everyday coins were being struck by the millions at the U.S. mints. Among them was the humble 1951 Lincoln Wheat Penny. And while most people didn't think twice about it back then, today it has become one of the most talked about cents among serious coin collectors. Let's talk design for a moment. On the front of this coin, what collectors call the obverse, is a profile of Abraham Lincoln. His portrait is calm, wise, and resolute. He's flanked by the word liberty and the phrase, "In God we trust." And just to the right of his image, you'll see the date, 1951. Right beneath that date, on select coins, is a tiny letter, either a D for Denver or an S for San Francisco. That small letter, the mint mark, is far more important than most people realize. It tells us where the coin was made. But in some cases, it also hints at something far more valuable, rarity. Now, flip the coin over. The reverse shows two sheaves of wheat gracefully curving around the bold letters, 1 cent and United States of America. Above them, the timeless motto, E pluribus unum, which means, out of many, one. Simple. Elegant. Instantly recognizable, this wheat penny design was first introduced in 1909, and by 1951, it was still going strong. But only 7 years later, in 1958, the wheat design would be retired forever, replaced by the image of the Lincoln Memorial. So, this 1951 coin wasn't just currency, it was part of the final chapter in a legendary American series. Now here's where things get really interesting. In 1951, the Denver and San Francisco mints produced millions of Lincoln cents. But not all coins were created equal. The vast majority were used in everyday commerce. They were tossed in coin jars, handed to paperboys, lost under couch cushions, and exposed to decades of wear and tear, but a few escaped. A few 1951 D and 1951 S Lincoln Wheat Pennies were struck with extraordinary clarity, preserved perfectly, and never entered circulation. These coins retained their original copper-red color, full detail, and mint luster. And these are the coins that collectors hunt like treasure. Now layer on the possibility of a mint error. Sometimes, coins are struck more than once by mistake, creating what we call a double die. Sometimes, the mint mark is pressed twice at slightly different angles, creating a repunched mint mark, also known as an RPM. And sometimes, the coin is struck off-center or has incomplete metal fills, known as planchet errors. To a casual observer, these might look like flaws. But to a coin collector, they're gold. Not literally, of course, but metaphorically, they represent ultra-rare anomalies, making that coin one of a kind. Let's say you discover a 1951 D wheat penny. At first glance, it looks normal. But when examined under a magnifier, you see something strange, perhaps a faint doubling in the numbers of the date. Or maybe the D mint mark looks a little off. You send it to a coin grading company like PCGS or NGC. It gets reviewed by professionals. They examine its strike, its color, its surface, and any errors, then they assign a grade on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70. If your coin hits the top levels, MS 65, MS 66, or even MS 67 or higher, you're not just holding a penny anymore. You're holding a jackpot. In fact, when a rare coin like this hits the market, especially in mint red condition with a recognized mint error, it can ignite a bidding war among collectors. The rarer the combination of features, the higher the stakes, and while most 1951 D or 1951 S wheat pennies sell for a few bucks, some for a few hundred in high grades, it's the once-in-a-lifetime coins that shatter all expectations. One such coin, an uncirculated, red-toned, mint-error 1951 penny with a high-grade mint state, recently stunned the numismatic world. It stood out not just for its beauty, but for its rarity, condition, and historical significance. It had everything: sharp strike, red copper shine, a dramatic doubling, and flawless surfaces, and at auction, the final price blew everyone away. That single coin, once worth only a single cent, sold for an astonishing $310,000, yes. You heard that right, $310,000. For a 1951 Lincoln Wheat Penny with a mint mark, let that sink in. So, if you're watching this thinking, there's no way an old penny could be worth that much, think again, check your coin collections. Go through old jars. Revisit that shoebox in the attic that belonged to your grandparents. Because you never know what's hiding in plain sight, the next rare treasure could be lying at the bottom of your change drawer right now. Today, we're going to peel back the layers of one extraordinary artifact, the 1939 Lincoln Wheat Penny with a mint mark. What makes it special? Why are collectors scrambling to find one in perfect condition? And how could a coin that cost 1 cent to make turn into a fortune? Stay with me until the end, because we're about to uncover the incredible story, and the eye-popping value, of this copper treasure. To understand the magic behind the 1939 Wheat Penny, we have to travel back in time to a very different America. The year was 1939. The United States was just starting to climb out of the Great Depression. Jobs were returning. Industry was picking up. But overseas, tensions were rising. In Europe, war was on the horizon. Hitler had invaded Poland. World War II had just begun, and in the midst of global uncertainty, everyday Americans were going about their lives, buying bread for 8 cents a loaf, going to the movies for a dime, and slipping copper pennies into vending machines and cigar boxes. It was in this era that the U.S. Mint quietly produced the 1939 Lincoln Wheat Penny. This coin may have looked ordinary to the average citizen. But to numismatists, coin collectors, it represents a time capsule, rich in history and full of surprises. Let's start with its design. On the obverse, or front of the coin, is a profile of President Abraham Lincoln, America's 16th president. His gaze is calm, yet determined. Engraved above him are the words, "In God we trust." To his left, the simple yet powerful word, "Liberty." And on the right, your key detail, the year, 1939, with a small letter below it, either D for Denver or S for San Francisco. This small letter, the mint mark, tells you where the coin was struck. And while it might seem like just a tiny stamp, it can make a massive difference in the value of the coin. On the reverse side, we see the now iconic wheat ears, the symbol that gives this coin its nickname, the Wheat Penny. Framing the words, 1 cent and United States of America, these wheat stalks stand as a tribute to American agriculture and strength. Above them sits the Latin phrase, e pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one. Simple. Timeless. And loaded with meaning. But here's where things get interesting. The 1939 Lincoln Wheat Penny was produced in relatively high numbers, but survival isn't the same as production. You see, millions were minted, but only a fraction remain in exceptional condition today. Most were used in daily commerce, passed between hands, jingled in coat pockets, tossed into drawers. Over the decades, these coins were exposed to moisture, scratches, friction, and time. Very few made it through the 20th century in near-perfect condition, and it's those pristine coins, what collectors call mint state, that have become the true holy grail. Now, let's introduce another twist. Mint errors. Sometimes, during the minting process, mistakes happen. And in 1939, several types of errors were accidentally created. Double dies, where the design appears slightly doubled. Off-center strikes, where the coin was not properly aligned in the press. Die cracks. Clipped planchets. And the elusive repunched mint mark, where the tiny D or S was punched into the die more than once, slightly misaligned. To most people, these would look like flaws, but to collectors, they're golden. Because these aren't just errors, they're rare anomalies, and they make the coin incredibly valuable. And now, combine that with grade. Coins are rated on a 70-point scale. Anything above 60 is considered mint state. The higher the grade, the sharper the details, and the brighter the original copper luster. If your 1939 D or 1939 S Wheat Penny has brilliant red color, no signs of wear, and even an error, you're no longer holding spare change, you're holding history, and potentially, a once-in-a-lifetime jackpot. Let me tell you what happens when a coin like that shows up in today's market. It gets sent to a professional grading company, like PCGS or NGC, where experts examine every detail under magnification. They check for doubling, mint mark clarity, strike quality, luster, and surface marks, and if it scores high, say, MS 67 or above, with red color and perhaps a rare error, you now have a coin that only a few people on Earth might own in that condition. That kind of rarity doesn't go unnoticed. When such coins hit the auction block, it's not just hobbyists who show up. Investors, museums, high-end collectors. They all take notice. And when they want something that rare, bidding wars erupt, and the value? You're probably wondering what's the big reveal. Well, a 1939 Lincoln Wheat Penny with a mint mark, in mint red condition, with a rare doubling error, professionally graded at the highest levels, and confirmed by experts. One such coin recently made waves in the coin collecting world. When the auction closed, the price paid was beyond anyone's expectations. That 1 copper cent, that tiny piece of pocket change from 1939, sold for an absolutely stunning $350,000. Yes, you heard that right. $350,000, from a coin that once bought a stick of gum.so. What can you take from this? Never overlook a coin just because it's small, old, or common looking. Because buried in a pile of ordinary can be something extraordinary. History doesn't just live in textbooks, it lives in your hands, your drawers, your jars. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most iconic and sought-after coins in the world of numismatics, the 1955 Lincoln Wheat Penny with a mint mark. This little copper cent carries with it the legacy of a nation recovering, rebuilding, and moving forward in the mid-20th century. While millions of these coins were produced, some versions stand out, not just because of their age, but because of their rarity, their condition, and the fascinating errors that make them unique. And believe it or not, a single 1955 Lincoln Wheat Penny, in the right condition, can command prices that will leave you speechless. Let's travel back to the mid-1950s, a pivotal era in American history. The country was in the midst of a post-war boom, industries were thriving, families were growing, and the spirit of innovation was at an all-time high. Cars, television, rock and roll, and suburban neighborhoods were defining the American dream. And amidst all this cultural growth, the U.S. Mint was busy producing everyday currency to fuel this expanding economy. Among the coins minted that year was the beloved Lincoln Wheat Penny, a design that had been around since 1909 and carried the face of Abraham Lincoln, the president who preserved the Union during the Civil War and whose legacy symbolized strength and resilience. On the obverse, or front side, you'll find Lincoln's profile, etched with fine detail and surrounded by the words, "In God We Trust," and "Liberty." The date, 1955, sits prominently to the right of Lincoln's image, and just beneath the date, you'll see a small letter denoting the mint where the coin was struck, either a D for Denver or an S for San Francisco. This mint mark might seem like a tiny detail, but it can drastically affect the coin's rarity and value. Flipping to the reverse side, the wheat stalks, hence the name Wheat Penny, embrace the words 1 cent and United States of America, with the motto E Pluribus Unum arching above. This classic design was a fixture of American currency for nearly half a century, evoking both simplicity and a connection to the nation's agricultural roots. Now, while the 1955 Lincoln Wheat Penny was minted in the tens of millions, what makes some of these pennies truly exceptional is their condition and, more importantly, the presence of minting errors. One of the most famous, and valuable, errors from this year is the 1955 double die penny. This error was caused during the die preparation process, where the coin's design was inadvertently stamped twice with a slight offset, creating a striking doubled image of the date and lettering on the coin's obverse. It's a visual marvel that has fascinated collectors and experts alike, but even beyond the double die variety, finding a 1955 penny with a mint mark that has survived decades in near-perfect condition is increasingly rare. Most pennies from this era were in heavy circulation, enduring countless exchanges, wear, scratches, and the erosion of time. Coins with their original deep copper-red color, sharp strike details, and no signs of wear are prized treasures. Coins that meet these high standards are graded by professional numismatic organizations on a scale that measures their state of preservation. A high grade, such as mint state 65 or above, can dramatically increase a coin's market value. When paired with a minting error, rarity, and strong demand from collectors, the price of such a coin can skyrocket. In recent years, an extraordinary 1955 Lincoln Wheat Penny with a mint mark, preserved in exceptional condition and boasting a notable mint error, has made headlines in the coin collecting community. At auction, the coin drew intense bidding wars and sparked excitement among collectors worldwide. When the gavel finally fell, the winning bid shattered expectations, reaching an incredible sum. This once modest copper cent, which had passed through countless hands over the decades, sold for a staggering $370,000. This is a testament to the fact that sometimes, the most unassuming objects can hold the greatest value, both financially and historically. So, whether you're a seasoned collector, a casual enthusiast, or someone who's just discovered a handful of pennies in an old drawer, remember, every coin has a story, and some stories are worth more than gold. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the fascinating world of the 1955 Lincoln Wheat Penny with a mint mark, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more incredible coin tales and discoveries. Until next time, keep your eyes open. You never know when a hidden treasure might be right in front of you.